Right now, CNN has a major projection to bring you. In the battle for control of Congress, 1 week and 1 day after Election Day, CNN can now project that Republicans will hold on to control of the House of Representatives. This is based on projections that we've made combined with an analysis of results from House races across the country. In Arizona's 6th district, we've determined that Congressman Juan Ciscomani will win re-election. And in California's 41st, Ken Calvert, the Republican incumbent, will also win re-election. That gives Republicans the magic number of 218 seats needed to control the chamber.
So Democrats failing to win enough seats to reclaim the majority. And this is an important development for the GOP, which, as we said, we can now say will control both chambers of Congress and the White House. And that gives President-elect Trump the ability to carry out his agenda, assuming that he keeps all of the members of his party in line, because it is going to be a slim majority there in the House. So let's discuss now with CNN's Jeff Zeleny, David Chalian, and Manu Raju. Manu, he has all of these levers of power.
Yeah, single party rule is back in Washington. Remember, that's what Joe Biden had right off the bat. This is what Donald Trump had right off the bat in 2017 and 2018. He had single party rule then. He will have single party rule again. This is a Republican Party that is much different than it looked like when last time he was in town. There were more critics of Donald Trump back then. There are fewer critics right now, and Donald Trump will be able to work his will over the House GOP. No question about it. There's a very much a Trump House Republican conference, and just a huge blow for Democrats who had hoped that they could flip the House. The House had very few competitive districts. There were millions of dollars are spent in key districts like in California, in New York, and in the suburbs, and in places like Arizona, places where they thought they could pick up seats, places that Joe Biden won, some in cases by double digits back in 2020. But given Donald Trump's gains across the maps, the Republicans down ticket were able to ride his coattails, and now they will have power in the House, subpoena power in the committees. Once again, also the ability to shape and drive legislation on the floor, put whatever they want on the House floor. Then it will go over to the United States Senate, now run by Senate Majority Leader, incoming Senate Majority Leader John Thune. The Senate will be a different complication. It'll need 60 votes to get most legislation through, meaning Democrats would be needed to pass most legislation. But nevertheless, a huge boost for the GOP. And now that we can project that the House will stay in Republican hands, guys.
And Manu, there have been some questions about whether House Speaker Mike Johnson would retain leadership of his conference in that chamber. Chip Roy of Texas suggested that he might face a leadership challenge. Of course, that came before we heard Donald Trump's endorsement of Speaker Johnson earlier today. What are you hearing about his chances? Does he have the votes?
Yeah, look, today Donald Trump said to his colleagues, to the GOP members, he supports Mike Johnson staying on. And they had a leadership forum this morning, and no challenger emerged for Mike Johnson, meaning that he is poised this afternoon to be nominated by his conference to be the next Speaker of the House. But here is the catch. On the House floor in January, he needs to be able to keep 218 votes, meaning depending on what the final number is, we don't have the final number of House Republicans, but let's say there are 222 Republicans. That means he cannot lose more than 4 Republicans on the House floor in order to become elected Speaker of the House. And I caught up with one of his main detractors, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who behind closed doors today pressed Johnson and also yesterday to me criticized Johnson for not having a bigger House majority.
We should have a major majority, a super majority, but we don't. And we don't have that, I think, is based on the performance of this Congress. This Congress has had a lot of failures in the eyes of our voters, in the eyes of the American people. The American people gave a mandate last Tuesday of the types of policies they want, the agenda that they want, and that's President Trump's policies that he laid out on the campaign.
Is Speaker Johnson to blame for that?
Yes, his leadership. Unfortunately, he fully passed the Biden-Harris agenda.
Now, Johnson told me yesterday he's not concerned about the votes in the House in January. He thinks he'll ultimately get there. He believes Donald Trump will help him get there, but just shows you, again, a razor-thin House Republican majority like they had at the beginning of this Congress and throughout this Congress, which has given them fits all along, led to the ouster, of course, of Kevin McCarthy, the last Speaker of the House. So the question will be, will those detractors like Marjorie Taylor Greene fall in line, or will they complicate the Republican agenda and getting a new Speaker in January? Guys.
All right, Mani Raju live for us on the steps of the Capitol. Thank you so much for that report. Let's discuss now with CNN's Jeff Zeleny and David Chalian. Just to be clear, though, he didn't fully pass the Biden-Harris agenda. In fact, he helped sink a key part of it, which was the bipartisan immigration deal that was struck in the Senate with Joe Biden to effectively help Donald Trump on that issue. I just think we should say credit where credit is due, Marjorie Taylor Greene. But let's talk about, this is a key moment, and we've seen this coming, David, but now it is here that Republicans are also controlling the House.
Yeah, the trifecta is official. The presidency, the House, the Senate. It is common in American history that when a new president comes in, they do have both chambers. That's not an uncommon thing. We see them try to utilize that to get through their big ticket agenda items in those first 2 years before perhaps a midterm election may deliver another result. Now, this majority for the Republicans is going to be narrow. You just noted we got to this by projecting 2 more races. That gets them to 218. There are 9 outstanding races right now, 4 of which Republicans currently hold the lead in. But not clear that those leads are all going to hold. But let's say even most of them do. You're talking about a majority here of 221, 222, probably at the maximum. In fact, there was a great moment, I don't know if you saw this morning with President Trump when he was talking to House Republicans. He walks in, he takes the stage, he looks to the leadership team and says, what are you guys, +4, +5? And like the leadership team was like, like it was kind of in response. They weren't, that +4, +5 may be wishful thinking here, given where we are in these outstanding races, but the trifecta is here. This is a Republican Party, including up on Capitol Hill, much more in Donald Trump's image than the Republican Party he found in 2017. There's no doubt about that. But as you just heard from Marjorie Taylor Greene, when the margins are this narrow in the House, every voice matters.
And as we saw in the last Congress, Jeff, that can have discombobulating effects for the efficiency of the House.
Absolutely. Discombobulating is probably a good word. Look, I mean, it's a much narrower majority than the presidential result indicates. I mean, I think if you were just to look at that, you would think that Republicans would have done better in some places. But Democrats were pretty confident going into this. Hakeem Jeffries never said it, but a lot of Democrats thought he would be the House Speaker. That is not the case. But we are seeing a dramatic difference. The sea change, you can feel it in Washington with the former president meeting with the current president of the White House today. The leadership vote on the Senate side coming up on the House side. This is Donald Trump's Washington. There's no doubt about it. However, David, I think, made a good point for 2 years. I mean, that's all that happens at one point, and the House is so on a razor's edge that could certainly change in the second half of the Trump term.
The narrow majority last term was such a headache for the Speaker.
Which Speaker?
Well, right? We saw that mess. We saw that mess. However, when they control the White House and both chambers, is it going to be a little bit of a different story? Is it easier for Trump to kind of crack the whip and get people in line in the House?
A quick answer, yes, absolutely. There's no doubt with one-party rule, especially when it's in the image of Trump, as you said, I think it's much easier.
Yeah, I also think who's in charge matters. And you just saw John Thune, newly elected as Senate Majority Leader, come out and detail multiple times how it's important to pursue Donald Trump's agenda, Donald Trump's agenda, Donald Trump's agenda again and again. I wonder, as some of the MAGA acolytes down in Mar-a-Lago sort of express some apprehension about him as leader, if there is a place for him to perhaps be a guardrail, as we've described in the past, towards some of Trump's more extreme ambitions.
Well, you also saw John Thune's leadership team that was elected around him, including Senator James Lankford from Oklahoma. You mentioned the immigration bill that had a bipartisan. He was the leader on the Republican side of that bipartisan effort that Trump scuttled. But there he was today in this leadership team pledging that Donald Trump's agenda is going to be their agenda to get through.